Okay, welcome. I'm going to try to describe. Okay, welcome. I'm inviting you to explore the possibility of. No. Okay, welcome. I'm inviting you to explore how we can co create the final module of Sqale, okay, or eco squared, ecological economics. I've been developing this for years, and I still haven't quite managed to settle in on it. So what I'm doing is I'm sharing some of the material on the page on the website, and I'm accompanying it with this recording. I'm going to try and keep it to a very short bit of recording for a few minutes, just to give us an idea of what we're doing, and then I'll extend it into the material that's actually written down, if anybody needs to have an accompaniment, and also to remind myself. Okay, so the economic basically consists of treating money as a vector, which means that we have an alternative mathematical basis for mapping human engagement. So in this case, credits or money. Okay, it's a vector. It's a direction in time. Okay. Because of that, okay, you see, I started discussing things. Now, in the actual app, we have the mechanism by which we can use this to share, and so we can get viral distribution, revenue generation for sharing something like this video, but content like a website or an appeal to generate money for a charity or to write a book or whatever it is that somebody would like to do, and we're sharing it forwards with people because that's a good idea. So we're sharing it with people, generating the revenue for those people to complete that project. Now we've got that, and so that's the sharing, that's the inviting to a project or the gifting of a product. Now we've got the graph of that, the distribution graph, as it goes outwards. We also have the gratitude engine, which is the gratitude tracking between people. And so it's an internal evaluative state, just like when you rate something, it's your evaluative state that we're sharing. Or with projects, it used to be value, but now it's called intent. Okay, there's many words that we could use for future objectives, how motivated we are, how inspired we are, how enthused we are, how happy we are about what it is that we're trying to achieve. But I'm just going to stick to the word intent for now because it's relatively clean and it gives us the kind of, it's an intention towards a future objective. So we've got this, which is money, and then we've got the idea, and that's an action. Okay, it's an action, it's something that happens. Whereas an intention, intent, is a kind of correlates to it. An intention is it's just like when you rate something, it's an internal state. So an intent is an internal state. So if you know anything about mathematics, it's the eigenvalue of our psychosocial existence. The eigenvalue. It's just the intent of it, the smallest, there's no action to it. There's not even a word to it. So, I live in a community. It'd be nice to have ground heating, okay, so that we can supply our own energy from ground heating sources. That's going to cost about 80k in the current traditional economy, and we could generate that by putting out the appeal. The intention, all right, by the community members is to have that, but they're not acting on it. Okay, because you'd have to put a campaign together, blah blah blah, and they're not doing that. So there's an intention, and that's as far as it gets. There's no actual action. They talk about it a little, so there's a bit of action in the wording, and they're sharing the wording with other people. So I, for example, know that that's what the community wants to do. So there's an action, and when there's an action, we apply credits to it. But the intention is just an internal reflection. We're sharing that. We're sharing our internal reflection just in the same way we share our values. Fine, all right? But the intent towards a future objective is different from a rating. Okay, so a rating is, I like this cup of tea, I like these pens. These pens are really good actually. MaxiFlow Pentel whiteboard markers. I love them. It's got this button. It's great. So I love this product. Okay, so I'd give this about, in terms of pens and working out, this is about an 8 or a 9 out of 10. This is like amazing. All right, not as good as chalk. I love chalk. Chalk is amazing with a chalk chuck. I love chalk. If this was a chalkboard, I'd love it. I mean, I'd love it. That's 10 out of 10. All right, I had no idea when they got rid of chalk. It's brilliant. All right, but in terms of pens, this is about an 8 or 9. And that's a rating. It doesn't actually affect this thing. I'm not doing anything to this thing. I'm not really doing anything to anybody else. I'm just sharing it with another human being who's looking for a good pen. And they go, oh, this guy thinks this is an 8 or 9. Okay, why is that? And so we're sharing our internal state about the pen. It doesn't affect the pen. Yes, the company then might go, oh, right, people like this pen rather than another pen. Let's make more of these. Fine. Okay, that's an effect of our internal sharing. All right, but it's not a direct effect. Whereas using credits is a direct effect. You're doing something directly with another human being. You're doing something. So the internal evaluation of the pen has an indirect effect, if anything, all right? But it's really just a sharing. However, an intention towards a future objective, the intention towards, building this ground pump. Well, if I actually then start sharing the idea, as they've done it with me, and I share it with you, and we start sharing the idea of it, the intention is in some way or other directly correlate to the actual event of us actually having ground heat pump, put into the community. So one's intention is affecting one's behavior. There's a direct connection. Whereas a rating, as I say, it's just kind of like after the fact. I like this, I don't like this. It doesn't affect this pen. However, the intention of something will affect my behaviors and other people's behaviors, and thus increase the chances of a thing actually happening. And there's a contiguous relationship between our intention and whatever it is that happens in the world. So that intention towards a future project is not just a value or a rating. No. It's definitely towards achieving it. Okay, so what we're exploring, what I've been, this last third part, okay, taking a bit of time to explain it, is how do projects or credits, okay, associated with projects, or intent associated with projects, and we've got those both in the current app. How do we show this collectively? Okay, that's the trick. How do we show this as a visual? It's not just as easy as that. Okay, it's complicated. Okay, that's what all the text is. Okay, it's not complicated, it's complex. There's a couple of subtle things to do with the association of my intent and other people's intent. Okay, we can kind of see that on the graph, that's easy. But it's to do with how do projects relate to other projects. Okay, we get nested projects, and I'll go into a little bit of detail of what we've got currently. And it's to do with whether we're sequencing the projects according to our individual perspective, or we're sequencing the projects relative to our collective agreement on how to sort those projects out. And we're looking for a minimal method to do this. Now, given our financial constraints, i.e. we've got very limited control, we've got this UI, and we have to use a library that already exists. Okay, so we've got to find a bit of tech in a library, like the social graph, distribution graph, and the thanks graph. Both of those were libraries that we've actively morphed into using it to share, to reflect our thanks or distribution. So those models, those graphs were already in a library, and we co-opted them. Similarly, we have to find a graph that kind of does what we're wanting here, and it's like, oh, it's this graph. So it's not just a theoretical thing. It's not just, let's work out the maths of this. It is, we have to work within the constraints that we've got. it's got to be done within about 2 to 3 or maybe even 4 weeks maximum. Okay, which costs a bit of money, which we don't really have. Okay, so we're on a fairly tight budget here. So that's what I'm going to talk about the rest of this. Okay, is to remind myself of what the maths is, but also it's straight down to the text. So if you find this all just a bit like waffly, go ahead and just have a look at the text and try and make sense of it. But the invitation is there to do this final part, because we've got 3 graphs so far, 2 graphs so far, we want the 3rd graph. And it's within our grasp, okay, we can maybe produce this graph with your help. As I say, I've looked at this from different angles over a few years, and for me it's like catching fish. Okay, the fish kind of comes, I'm like tickling. I don't have like a hook and line or fishing rod. It's just my fingers, and I'm like, oh, I think that's the fish. I think it's from and then it's gone. Okay, and it's a bit like that. And I get a different perspective on it every time I approach it. And it's over the years I've got a bit more of an idea of what this fish is, where this fish is, and everything else. But I'm trying to, basically getting rid of the metaphor, working out what the minimal methods are, what the minimal numbers that we need, what the minimal code, what's the minimal graphic that can contain basically the self-organizing principles or elements, all right, for us to be able to basically project manage everything. Okay, so in the same way that we've got the credits for the sharing, distribution, we've got the thanks. This thing is the minimal thing for us to be able to plan together in a self-organized way. It's like, I wrote this down actually on the phone just this morning. It's like the equivalent of, okay, I'll write it down because I've forgotten. Okay, that's how this works. All right then. Thanks very much for watching this far. If you want to continue watching this, read it on. Just do whatever you want to do. Take part, and if this makes sense to you, great, join. If it doesn't, or you know somebody that this makes more sense to, please share this with them, because we're doing this now. Okay, this is the middle of May, towards the end of May. So basically, we're going to be doing this in June. So please share this forward with anybody right now, and hopefully we'll get the right people. They'll go, I know the answer to that. It's this. So, wow. Okay, this is the necessary element. That is the necessary element. These are the necessary elements. So wow, you've got a really clear way of putting it together. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to isolate the different parts and then going, right, these different parts kind of go like this. Very nice, beautiful. And then when anybody looks at it, they go, wow, that really does reflect how we're doing this. Cheers.